Skipster is the guest management platform used by top event teams for everything from guest lists to seating charts and online invitations. If you're looking for next generation event software that helps deliver perfect guest experiences, head over to Skipster's website. It's Skipster, ZKIPSTER.com to try a free event.
Are you a follower? Okay, so we're gonna be
Welcome to Gather Geeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Hi, David.
Hey, Beth. Here we are in another Gather Geeks podcast.
Our guest today is Duncan Fraser, Director of the Event Experience Team at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment in Toronto. That is the parent company of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto FC, the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League, and, of course, the new NBA champions, the Toronto Raptors. And they also own or operate the venues these teams play in. I'll note before we get into it that this was recorded before the NBA Finals, but MLSE had already started on the strategy of creating an engaging fan experience outside of the arena for fans who didn't have tickets but wanted to get involved. David, are you a sports fan?
I'm not a huge sports fan, but I appreciate the event aspects of sports. And when I was actually at the construction site when they were sort of building their town square next to their stadium, they were building it for the purpose of creating this fandom aspect, which was really pretty interesting.
Yes, and we actually wrote about that in BizBash, a little bit about that strategy, and it's what everybody saw on TV as the finals were being played. So it paid off in terms of exposure for sure. Well, Duncan is going to talk about the team's fan engagement strategy and how it advises sponsors on being in that space, as well as in-venue topics such as the VIP experience. The conversation is also part of the Sparking Change campaign with Skipster. So, David, you're joined by Alex Carter in that discussion. Let's listen.
Okay, so Duncan, welcome to Gather Geeks, this special edition. My cohort and moderator together today, we're going to talk about why we're here. Why don't you lay the groundwork, Alex?
Sure. So thanks for being with us today. As David mentioned, the campaign itself is called Sparking Change, and this is looking at a kind of interesting part of events that is maybe not as kind of dissected as the night of the event or the event itself or even the lead up to the event of the planning going into it, but it's actually looking at how you can use events as a tool to create change that lasts beyond the night of the event and just starts a tidal wave going somewhere. So
and the metaphor for night of the event is any kind of event, anywhere.
Exactly.
That gathers people together, that shows the power of face-to-face community. And I guess the first question is, how do you empower people in face-to-face? I mean, you guys have doubled down on it. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what the organization does.
Yeah.
Because I think it was fascinating to hear how this company is embracing our world.
Yeah, for sure. So Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, I think, has always been at the forefront and always at the upper edge of the in-stadium experience. When people came to a game, whether it be the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Raptors, or whoever it was, they knew they were going to get an amazing experience. And as the business continued to grow, they wanted to start doing more things for the community, more things for the city, making sure fans were having an amazing time, and also doing great things for our partners and our supporters. And so we've really created this event experience team, which I am on now. And the whole point of that is really to reach those fans that can't get in the building. And even though 20,000 people a night sounds like a lot of people, it's a city of millions. And we want to make sure that every single person who is a fan is getting an opportunity to interact and really have a great time with the brands that they are, so in love with and so loyal with.
Is this the primary marketing tool for the most part, the most impactful?
I think it could be the most impactful. I don't think we're there yet. I think we've done a lot of really cool things online around, pumping people up before the season or before the playoffs or doing some cool music partnerships or whatever it might be. But I think this is becoming that tool. We want to give people those experiences because it's really hard to get a seat in that building. And for all those fans who can't afford it or might not ever have the chance to, we're trying to create those experiences, those touch points with, our athletes or our front office or whatever it might be that they desperately want. And so that's what we're really trying to do every day.
And you're creating a sense of FOMO.
Essentially.
Essentially,
that's what we do in events in general, right? Isn't it?
Exactly. However, though, I kind of believe that events, there's a concept called the parasocial relationship, which is a two-way relationship between a fictional character. And these sports teams become your best friends.
Yes.
And so how do you become a better friend, but be hospitable?
Yeah, exactly.
And so do the kind of things that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's really the point of it, right? It's this unknown kind of quality you have in the back of your brain where you're just, if the Raptors had lost last night, I don't think I'd be in a very good mood today.
Oh, yeah. It impacts every part of your life.
And that makes no sense. I don't know those players. Yeah. They're not my friends.
Actually, they are.
So, yeah, but I think they are. And I think a lot of people can really kind of relate the exact same way. When it comes to sports, there's a certain loyalty that you have to these teams that doesn't make sense. It's irrational. It's an irrational obsession with these teams. And we try and really live off that. We love that insight.
For young boys, it was sports. Now it's also girls and boys. Yeah. But in the old days, it was boy bands and girls.
Right.
You feel the same type of relationship.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
And we actually see that also with adults when we go to Southwest and C2 Montreal and Luminato and all those, that we have these relationships with these events that are beyond what you can explain rationally in many cases.
Exactly. And that's what's so fun about events, I think, in general, is it just kind of brings out, that kid, that mentality of like just here to have fun and experience something. And it really allows you to create this amazing captive audience. And I think in a world where, speaking as a millennial, we are so distracted by everything. We all have our watches on that buzz all the time. We all have our, 3 screens at home open when we're watching a TV show, but doing some work and maybe the game's on in the background. You get distracted by everything. But when you're in an event, you're there for one reason, right? And I think that's that captive audience that we really look for.
So I think that's an interesting segue there to social media and the relationship to events as well, is especially now with Instagram Live and other live streaming channels across YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much everything has some kind of live component to it now. And a very sort of natural connection is to events of people at events, whether that's a host or a guest streaming the event back. How do you think that's kind of changed the relationship of events for people both there and then on the outside as well?
Yeah, I think well, the one thing that I think has really changed when I was much younger working in events, when you'd think about your floor plan or the way that people would experience the event, it was always, what's the big wow moment that they get when they walk in the front door, or what's the big impact moment? I think you need to think really differently from that now. It needs to kind of be always on. And I say that only because, if I go out to Jurassic Park outside of Scotiabank Arena before the game, tomorrow or on Wednesday night, every fan has their cell phone out in their hand and they're filming everything. Every single little interaction. If you see the highlight from last night where the final shot goes in from Kawhi and the buzzer goes off and the fans go crazy, everybody's holding their phone up. And I think
it's remarkable to see.
It's remarkable.
It's remarkable.
Yeah. And so you have to have that in mind. You can't ever be off.
But do you think, let me challenge you on that a little bit. Do you think that your generation, I'm speaking as an older person, will get bored with that, as instead of participating, they're documenting? Is that, or do you don't see that as an issue?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think we try and bring out a little bit of participation through social media, so if the basic things, right? Tweet this or Instagram that, and you get a chance to go in the stadium. And so there is a participatory aspect and angle to it. Me, I kind of get a little bored with it. I don't want to post all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be the oldest millennial-minded person in the planet, and I'm getting a little bored with it too.
Yeah, but I think that numbers would tell you otherwise, right? And so that's where from my perception and my thought pattern might be a little bit different than everybody else's, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not really important. And so, we always talk about Instagrammable moments, which is still not a word, even though we pretend it is. But it is really important. And that becomes the dominant point of conversation, is what is that, constant ongoing wow factor. If people have their phone out the entire time, we need to make sure whatever they're sharing with anybody across the world is an amazing moment on behalf of our brands. And I think as we continue to try and build our brands globally, it's probably the most impactful way to be able to do that.
Do you want to run through your event portfolio in terms of share with everybody the kinds of things that you do and why?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you've got a whole massive amounts of things that you try to do.
Yeah, like our team is incredible, and we demand a lot of them. The games start at 8:00 at night or 8:30 in the playoffs. Those are late nights, and they have to be back in the next morning as well.
How big is your team? Let's just start off.
It's 13 people.
And what do they do?
Well, it depends. So we have been working on a broad set of portfolios, and I was just explaining how I thought I really knew MLSE before I got there, but it is such a big and complex company, and they have so many different angles. So we could be working on anything from a foundation gala event, raising money for the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Foundation, which really impacts the community here. They have a wonderful foundation center up just north of the city. That allows kids to come in and play sports every day. So we try and raise money for that, which is called Launchpad. So we could be working on 5 to 6 of those events a year, raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. We could be doing golf tournaments. We could do team events. We do all of our internal events. So our employee rallies or get-togethers, all the way to anything for one of our sports teams. And so you can see that from, the tailgates that have become a little bit more famous now that the TNTs and the ESPNs are paying a bit more attention to the Raptors. We have 4,000 to 5,000 fans out front of the building every night that there's a game on. And it's a complex situation. Toronto is a massive city. We can't just shut down roads. And so we have the Toronto Police Services, the fire services, the city officials all involved, the mayor, everybody knows what's going on every night. And our team's responsible for really putting that all together. And then finally, we can be involved in a lot of our travel plans. So we obviously have a lot of really impactful sponsors. Coca-Cola's, Molson's, Scotiabank, where we want to take them on incredible experiences, and we want to make sure that they can take their clients on incredible experiences. So we'll fly them to different games across North America, and we'll handle all that as well.
For the client entertaining,
exactly.
For them to
use So it's a wide range of pretty much anything from an experiential standpoint, and that was really the point of the team being created. Is we're the experience team. If you're going to experience something and it's outside the stadium, our team's responsible for bringing that to life.
Pretend you're a restaurant. What do people do of these 13 people? Like, how do you divide up the workload? Like, how does and help other people who have to organize their own event departments?
Yeah.
How do they do it? This is an inside pool.
Yeah. Wait, you know what? The only constant is change.
Yeah. You don't have to. We're not going to hold you to anything.
No, I know. I think. Just
general broad strokes.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do versus what are the other? What are your?
I think so. Basically, the idea is we split our team into what we call. It kind of flip-flops back and forth. So we have like our Scotiabank Arena team. So they handle anything Toronto Raptors or Toronto Maple Leafs based, because everything that happens with those two teams typically happens out of Scotiabank Arena. So they'll handle anything to do with that. And then we split that across to the TFC and Argos, as well as any internal major events. The way I really looked at it when I got there and decided to split it up was really, how do we create the best balance between two teams, where if one team is really swamped, the other team can come in and help support, so that nobody is ever feeling overworked, and that there is a right amount of balance between life and events, because all of us work in events. We all know they can be all life consuming, and I'm a big believer that you need to have your own life still. And sometimes we forget that in business. We just want to always hammer our employees. So
our people are going to be very interested in knowing how to do that.
Yeah.
Because we hear that a lot, but how do you actually do it?
I just took literally looked at our total sum of business, and then I kind of laid it out in a calendar with the help of my team. And we looked at it and we said, okay, where are the peak areas of where you need to really be focused? We all know events can take a full year to plan or longer, right? So we need to know that. What are the events that we're doing that are kind of an in and out? You can do it in 3 weeks and provide a great experience. We laid that out on a full grid across a full long year, and just said, okay, how do we color coded the whole thing, and we said, how do those numbers line up, and where's the proper split? And the way that we ended up splitting it was a very even, balanced way to do it. And like I said, you don't learn unless you fail. So was it perfect? Absolutely.
So, but is there an event producer on each team? Or like, well, how is it? What is it? What
we have event managers on each team, and then event specialists on each team, and then our coordinators and presentation admin or event administrators, who are more of our production assistants. They come in kind of when we need them to do all of the kind of like grit and grind work. Our managers are the ones that hold our client services, so they really take care of the client's needs. They talk to our different internal brand teams, or if we're dealing with an external partner, they'll handle that. But everybody's expected to kind of be like a production manager, as well as an event specialist, as well as a client service manager. So it is a very intense job, because you need to be able to hold your head through 3 different types of meetings.
Where does strategy fit in?
That's really my role. So my role is really at the get-go, dealing with our brand teams, dealing with our global partnerships team, who handles all our sponsors, dealing with our internal teams, whatever it might be, where it really sits down as to what is this event supposed to be, what are the ROI, what's the takeaways, what are our goals and objectives, and then setting that up with our team to really make sure that comes to life for the client.
So it sounds like you have a lot more people who are event focused than your team alone, that you're coordinating a whole organization.
Yes.
And it seems like it's a pretty big deal for the entire company.
It is. It's a big focus point for the business.
The sponsorships want events.
Yeah.
Right? And so they want those touch points. So you're always
Exactly.
involved in that, I would assume.
Yeah. We're always kind of hands-on in everything. Each sponsor is obviously a massive organization in itself, so they can take care of themselves a lot of the time. What we're trying to do is say, hey, we're the experts around our teams and our brands. So we can bring to life something for you that you might not know how to do, because we're the experts. If you want to do an event at Scotiabank Arena, well, we know how to do that. And so that's where we're really starting to play with sponsors as well. But really, at the end of the day, we're there to service our internal organization.
And so what are some of the coolest things that you've been doing, that you've been sort of experimenting with, either successfully or not?
Or not so successfully?
Cautionary tale to our listeners.
Yeah, I think I really love what we've been seeing this year with our tailgates. I think they've really impacted, and I, in my mind, and this is maybe wrong, but I think they've really sparked this whole movement about fan interaction around the arena. We've been doing it at a kind of level where we've been getting a lot of phone calls from a lot of other organizations saying, hey, how do you do this? How do you take care of that? And obviously Toronto is very different from other cities, and everybody has their own problems.
What is your secret sauce on those? Like
this year was, we saw some numbers issues last year where we weren't getting the amount of fans that we thought we would come down to the square. And so there's some marketing issues behind that as well, and all that kind of stuff. And we have a great team in place to be able to do that. But for my team, it was about how do we really drive a change? How do we make the fans feel like there's something new? And so this year we've really pushed our partners to say, hey, if you want to execute in this square, great, more than happy to have you here. But you really have to drive change for our consumers. No more, tossing out beer koozies or giving away little samples of something. What are you doing to make a tangible impact for our fan, to make them feel like they are part of the experience inside the stadium?
And what have they done? What are some examples?
Coors Light is the one that I have to call it the most.
I figure know that one pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was maybe cheating because I come from the business.
You're telling them what to do.
No. It's but they built this mobile mountain based on their entire Coors Light mountain campaign, and it's a very impactful kind of renovated container right in the middle of the square that provided us a bar as well as like a VIP platform that when fans buy a beer, they get a chance to stand on this VIP platform, which has the best view of our TV. They really came to the table with that. We've had other partners come to the table with amazing experiences, like giveaways, right? So whether it be flights to go see the Raps on the road or the Leafs on the road, or whether it be anything around that, giving away courtside seats that are thousands of dollars a pair, right? Our partners have really come to the table, and that's been really good. And then from our team's perspective, we built, I think our biggest stage ever was about a 10 by 12 or something like that. It was very small, or 20 by 8. And we've loaded in an SL100 and worked with a a partnerships team to build a production team to build another 2 10-foot stage on the side of it and put a whole digital like kind of board up, which allowed us to, again, leverage our partners a little bit better, tell better stories, and really make a massive impact.
Talk about the square. I mean, I toured the square while it was being constructed, and I found it interesting. So it's a real sort of like really, you can hold a huge rally there.
Yeah.
I mean, talk a little bit about what the intent was, because you own that.
Yeah. The intent really was, honestly,
this is outside the stadium. This is explain sort of the physical setup.
Yeah. So it's just basically, it's right on the west side of Scotiabank Arena, and it's basically a circle. It's a circle, and we have 2 partners with Menkes and Cadillac Fairview, who own the 2 buildings next to us. And so our sports bar there, Real Sports. It's just supposed to create a bit of like a community, right? Come down to the rink area, and you start to see this pop up all over the world, right? Staples Center is obviously the mecca of it. But the Edmonton Oilers just did this with the Ice District as well. It was just supposed to be your one-stop spot for entertainment, whether it be, really nice food, sports bars, whatever. We built a massive screen on the outside, and we thought this would be an amazing place to really create a fan experience once our teams were good enough to get there. And it took us a little, while to get there. And like I was saying earlier, people want these types of experiences because they don't always have access to get inside the building, and the next closest place is right on the outside. So that's really what the square was built for. It's just part of the city. We've had some closures to kind of close down that square, build these incredible experiences. But like I said, fans want to come out, they want to support, they want to be part of something bigger. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, so I think the fan angle is an interesting one to talk a bit more about too, because there is an overlap between a fan and a guest, but there might be a very different relationship dynamic that person has to the event and sort of to the meaning behind the event. So I'm curious just to hear more about that, and also maybe ways that the fan dynamic has transformed events that you didn't expect.
Yeah, well, I think when you talk about guest versus fan or consumer versus fan, there are 3 different types of people, and I think the guest is somebody who you're inviting, and so you know more about that person, you understand them and what their expectations might be. So when we're doing our galas or whatever it is, we know who's in the building, we know who's in the venue and who wants to be there. I think with the fan angle, they have a different set of feelings towards our team, right? They're there for one purpose only. Do they want some free stuff along the way, like some t-shirts or some swag? Yeah, absolutely. We all do, right? But it's really made us think about it differently, about the fact that we need each individual one of these fans to have their own amazing experience. And when they're leaving, we want them to be a bigger fan of our team than they were when they arrived, right? And while that stays true, whether it might be a guest or a fan, the fact that the unknown about who is there or how many people are coming, right? There is no invite system. There is no RSVP if you're coming to the square tonight. It is just, hey, we're building this experience for you. Come experience it with us. And that's really what we're trying to drive with that area and that zone. We just want to offer it up. It is free experience. Just come down and be part of something that is really special and a lot of fun.
Does it connect to the success of the team, or does the previous experience build on the next experience? Like if they see a bad experience, they won't come the next time, or does it have any relationship whatsoever?
I think it does have it. Let's be honest. If the teams were awful, nobody's
have a harder.
Yeah.
Or maybe give away a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you have a few, but you have to give away much more stuff. We've had good teams, and we've had some struggles, quite honestly, to get people there on time and get them engaged early. And I think that comes a lot from like being a fan. We can probably all relate to being a fan of something, and you're superstitious, or you went there one game and they lost and it was a great time, but they lost. I can't go back. Right.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah. Right.
That's a hard one.
And we all go through that. Right. Yeah. And so I think there is a little bit of that. It is definitely around team success, but I think that's a really easy cop out too. Right. Oh, the team didn't play very well. That's why we didn't get a ton of fans today. And that's why I think it really needs to be like focused in on what the experience is. And that's what we as a team continue to try and provide. Every single night is a new experience. And you don't know, that fan might be in town for one night and they've never been to Maple Leaf Square or Jurassic Park, and they want to come experience it. You can't do something that's not giving it your full effort, right? They may never come back. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Is that fan experience the top of the funnel? I mean, once you get them, you're getting them to that space. Is that when you think about funnel marketing?
Yeah.
Is that pretty high up on the funnel, or is that just a different marketing arena altogether?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think it can be a little bit of both, because I think at the top, you're just trying to attract, right? And I think when I was much younger and they were doing these, they had just launched kind of Maple Leaf Square when the Leafs made the playoffs in 2013. I had tons of friends who had never put a jersey on before come down and put on a jersey, right? They're not even a hockey fan, but they wanted to be part of something special. So I think there is a little bit of that. It's not always our most loyal fan. It's about the experience and being there, and like the FOMO thing we were talking about earlier. It is a little bit about that as well. And we'll take that, because what we want is for you to come and feel the intensity and like we said, the irrational loyalty and obsession with that team, and then become that person yourself.
Building a memorable experience for your guests means planning every detail right. Skipster is the guest management platform designed to help you create the perfect experience, from impressive online invitations to seamless check-in at the door. Get started at Skipster, spelled ZKIPSTER.com, for a free test event. Let's flip over to the VIP experience.
Yeah.
That's a different side of the coin, right? And what do you focus on with that, and how do you sort of serve that audience?
Yeah, so we have a team internally that's not involved in our team that handles a lot of those VIP experiences. I would say it's very much the same. We no matter what, want to make sure that they're provided kind of the best experience possible. I think our team in general has done a fabulous job with our partnership with OVO and Drake. I think just kind of bringing those two brands together, and his passion for the Raptors has really allowed it to become a global team. And that has really opened the door to Toronto being a bit more of a, sexy spot to come and watch the Raps game. And it wasn't that, 5 or 6 years ago. But I think even when we talk about, when we're taking people on our trips, or whether we're hosting them at a gala or whatever it might be, we look at ourselves as one of the best and biggest sports and entertainment businesses in the world. And therefore, if you're dealing with us, everything needs to be kind of held as such. So we try and always operate in the upper end of everything that we do, and make sure that they're getting kind of that first class experience all the way through.
Even the F&B experience. I mean, are you elevated? I was at Dodger. I did an event at Dodger Stadium the other day, and I was surprised how elevated the food and beverage experiences are at stadiums and things.
It's something that our company is really focused on right now. I remember going to a game there when I was like 12 years old, and it was kind of like pizza and popcorn and whatever. And I couldn't really have anything else anyways. But that was really what the drive is. I think now if you look at Scotiabank Arena as a venue, you have Scotia Club, which is an upper end dining restaurant. You have the Chairman's Lounge, Platinum Club, all these different types of places where you can go and host your clients when you're at the game. And it's really allowed us to kind of elevate our game within the stadium. And then from a quick service perspective, you see it all over the world, right? You need to be better. There's so many gluten-free and like all that kind of stuff, gluten tolerant, you need to be able to offer more. It can't just be a slice of pizza anymore. Although those are obviously still very popular. So, We've kind of established everything through our F&B team, who I think is just top notch, through our fine dining steakhouse offsite to one in the building. Our sports bar that's been named, ESPN's North America Sports Bar of the Year, 5 times out of the last 8 years. Those are things we really focus on.
So how do you compete? How do you continue to elevate? Like, what is the next phase to change the lives of the people? I mean, they're experiencing it. They're experiencing championships. They're experiencing experiences that are sort of like blowing their minds. Like, how do you compete with yourself?
Yeah, and complacency can be the easiest thing to do when you work for an organization like MLSE, in my mind. I've only been there over a year, but I can see how it's like, what did we do last year? Great, no problem, go do it again. And it can't be like that. we take for granted sometimes just how amazing our fans are. And I think we want to always make sure that they're having the best experience and that they're having the most fun, but we need to make sure that we're giving them something new. And so we challenge ourselves, I think, every day about it. Status quo is just not good enough anymore. And we see that because of what other companies do and how quickly people can become, world famous these days. And again, the role of social media and that, and just access to information from around the world. We need to be able to use kind of what other companies are doing and try and implement that to make our kind of fan experience even better. So we really do challenge ourselves every day. We're working with new agencies where we can to try and come up with some new ideas. We're challenging our clients to kind of have bigger and better budgets. We're thinking things differently, getting away from panels and think about, different ways that you get the panel experience, but it's not just panels anymore. It's something more immersed in something more engaging for every one of our consumers.
What was the coolest thing that you did this year in your first year here? Do you have anything that stands out in your mind? I know they're all your children. So no. But is there something that that is sort of like says, "Oh my God, this is really pretty good"?
Yeah, I think. There was two, and one is actually kind of funny, but we do our Leafs Legends alumni golf tournament every year, and so the whole team shows up, and then all of our alumni show up, and all our big partners come, and you get to play golf with a couple of the Leafs players, right? It's a pretty cool experience. It poured rain worse than I have seen in a long time in Toronto, and we were stuck as a team in that situation of being like, what do we do? Right? Like these guys, we can't just rearrange golf. It's September, right? These guys have a hockey schedule. They can't, right? A lot of people have come in for this and my team was incredible in the moment. Just immediately we're like, okay, let's build a whole program around kind of like fun interaction with our superstars. And so we started to pull in our bigger players and say, hey, will you go up on stage and do this or whatever? And within the time period that was supposed to be breakfast and maybe like an hour of rain delay, we put together basically like a luncheon for the Leafs and for all these people. And so all the players were there, all this kind of stuff came together. And I remember, I've been in the industry for about 10 years or 11 years in the sports industry. And the amount of people that came up to me and said, you know what, that was the best Leafs golf tournament yet. And we didn't even play golf.
What was it? What was it that you did at that luncheon that made it so magical?
I think just interaction. Usually these guys, the players do a nice job, but obviously you get a couple of, over the top fans that come in and want everything signed and autographed or whatever. And so usually, if we were playing as a threesome or a foursome or whatever, we'd have, Austin Matthews playing with us. Well, that's really great for us. We get to interact with Austin Matthews for 18 holes. Nobody else gets to talk to them. And the fact that they were all there and we kind of caught up with them about their summer or,
oh, wow. So,
we did a little bit of interviews but made it personal, not about hockey. It was about them. Yeah. And I think a lot of people left feeling like, oh, that was actually really cool. Like we got to know the team. It was fun. What an engaging day. We had a couple of drinks and good food and whatever, but I got to meet the coach. I got to meet the assistant coach, the GM, and because everybody's just floating around. Instead of usually it's, hey, wave at all the players. Right. Now you get one with your group and then you don't see them the rest of the time. So it was a very interesting pivot. We all looked at each other like, what do we do with this? And it worked.
Are you going to do it again?
People like to golf, myself included. Yeah, I'd rather be golfing.
Okay. Yeah. What's the second one? Yeah. You said that you had two.
That's probably the biggest one. But I think I just love seeing the fans come in every night to Maple Leaf Square, and it's a bit of a cop-out answer. I'll give you that, but I love seeing them come into Maple Leaf Square every night. They are just so excited and so engaged and so full of hope, which has been tough to come by sometimes with our sports teams, but. They just, it's amazing. And I think when you talk to your team, like when I first got to Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, I went around and talked to everybody on the team. And I just said, why do you like events? What's events to you? And I'd say 95% of the people said it's the look in people's eyes. Right. And I thought that was really impactful. I was like, wow, okay. I hadn't really thought about it that way. And that's what really motivates my team is seeing the people's reactions in the moment. And so for me, I see 2,000 people look the exact same way. Now it helps again when the shot goes in. But it's a lot of fun.
Do you know what is interesting as you bring this up? I was at the Game of Thrones premiere at Radio City this a couple weeks ago.
No big deal. Yeah.
But what was interesting is normally people are home watching that show on television.
Right.
Now you have 3,000 people in one place reacting to what's on the screen that you don't get when you're watching it on television.
Right.
So the fact that these people were all in one place, not in the stadium, and you sort of see how people act as a crowd is a whole different experience now that we're almost not used to anymore.
Right.
Except if you're in the stadium, if you're actually watching.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know why I brought that up, but
I think it was. You're probably thinking of when the Night King was like, no spoiler alert.
No, I have not seen it all.
No, I think it is very true, but I think it's the same with all of us. It comes down to, who you're with.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know everybody, but I always make the same joke with my buddies. It's if we're on a trip or something, and you're like trying to find the right bar to go to or whatever. And they're like, is that popular? Is it good?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I look at the guys all the time. I'm like, it doesn't matter because like we just have like an amazing time because of who we are with.
Yeah.
And so I think when you start to think about those large group settings, you don't know the person 10 guys down from you or whatever, but if that shot goes in, that's your new best friend.
Yeah.
You'll jump on one another, right?
Exactly.
Because you're passionate about something that is very, very similar. And I think there's a ton of brand insight in that too. When you get into like, again, brand loyalty and all those types of things, that's another whole conversation. But I think that's what's really, really special about the whole thing.
Great. You want to take us home, Alan?
Sure. So this has been a really fascinating conversation, and to take it to a personal note at the end, outside of call it any kind of like company benchmarks or ROI or event planning that's happening as
all
a team
fun stuff.
Yeah, you know, the real nail biters there. When we're talking about sparking change for you, if you could have one kind of legacy in the event industry, let's say it like that you sparked some kind of change, what change might that be?
Wow. It's a big time question.
It's a global question.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to mind.
I think for me, I am really about like my team more than anything. I really enjoy kind of working with those people and building something that is amazing together. But I think for me, like I would love for there to be a championship involved in the city. It'd be cool to look back one day and say, hey, remember that parade? You know, that was my team that ran that. But I think for me, it's about just making sure that our fandom in this city never dies for our great sports teams. And I really love the sports industry because there is that irrational loyalty to those brands. But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that kind of whenever I move on from the event world or I decide to hopefully retire one day, we never know these days, that's, you know, I was just part of teams that really created memorable experiences. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what I want to look back on. I don't need a statue built in my name as like the great party planner of Toronto. I don't need that. For me, it's more about, are we creating amazing experiences for fans, and did we make that kind of a great thing?
Oh, so do you have a copy of the parade plan somewhere in your desk? Is there someone? The fantasy parade.
Yeah, the fantasy parade. No, I would end up all over Barstool, TSN, everything about how an idiot in Toronto said something about a parade. No, it's a big city and it's a complex city, and it'll take us a long time to plan something like that. Right. So we always have to be ready. But
well, we hope that you get to do that.
Me too.
So on that note, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, we're back in our studio. And as I noted at the beginning, this was recorded before the Toronto Raptors won the NBA title. So Duncan got his wish that he asked for at the end of your conversation to be able to plan that celebration.
I bet he didn't realize how big of a deal it was because we were there during the parade. At least I was. It was pretty incredible.
so much excitement and people love to gather around sports and share that. But there really have been a lot of challenges to the live experience, and getting people to buy what can be really expensive tickets is one challenge. And, frankly, it's also really comfortable to watch a game at home. The television production is excellent. You get these amazing camera angles, and you have commentary, you have replay. And so the teams and venue operators really are challenged right now to rethink what that live experience is going to be like.
But there's still nothing like the live experience.
That's what they want to tell you, right?
Yes. I had the privilege of going to the Game of Thrones premiere.
You mentioned that in the podcast,
and I mentioned this in the podcast, and it was really interesting. And that what I said in the podcast is the same thing, that there is nothing like reacting off of the other people in the room.
Right. But the challenge is bigger than that, though,
Absolutely.
for these people who are owning these teams and operating the venues. I'll cite another example of the new thinking, because Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is aware of this issue and they're addressing it. But another one is the Atlanta Hawks, which is that city's NBA team. They actually lowered prices on some concessions at Phillips Arena as a fan-friendly gesture, kind of acknowledging that the cost of attending is skyrocketing. So they gave them a break on certain items, not everything, of course. So, you really have to be thinking about all ends of the spectrum from VIP to, your budget conscious fans.
Right. So Beth, what else is going on at BizBash?
Well, we actually have a story on planning sports victory celebrations that we did. And so I hope Duncan checked that out as they were making arrangements. And, we should also note that there was also a safety issue at that Raptors celebration, and there's a shooting that injured 4 people. Yep. So you really have to be prepared for anything. And on bizbash.com, we have a lot of stories about public safety at events. So look for those as well. Be prepared and plan for anything.
I think that it's also similar to all of the presidential candidates planning their inauguration.
Are they getting that far ahead of themselves at this point?
In their minds, they are. They may not. Right. They may not be. They're envisioning themselves taking the oath of office.
No doubt.
So before we end, we'd like to thank everybody that's involved in putting this podcast together. Claire Hoffman, who handles our editorial duties. Rebecca Pappas, who distributes it and gets it out to all the great channels in the universe. And of course, to Dave Nelson, our producer, who helps put the pieces together. So until next time, what do we say, Beth?
Gather on.
Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the Gather Geeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Gather Geeks. Until then, gather on.